potential options for the audit. Nancy had brought up that we could do a plan for over the years.
Yes, I have a new option over the ones that we discussed last month, because this is such a difficult decision. And when I visited with the city attorney to get advice on what's legal, what's not, how should we, how could we, it was his idea that the council make a determination and establish a policy whereby we would do an audit every 5 years. And do it by ordinance and establish this by ordinance, that the city would audit every 5 years. And then in order to do that, then in the same ordinance, establish a fee that every utility customer in Auburn would pay on a monthly basis, somewhere between $2 and $5 a month, that would contribute to a fund, build a fund. Not only, it won't pay for this one right away, but in the next 2 years it'll pay for this one if you set the rate exactly right. And then it'll build a fund so that in 5 years from now, when we do the next audit, the money will already be there, and 5 years from that, the money will already be there. We won't have to hit anybody with a large one-time chunk that'll be hard for some to pay, feels unfair for anybody to pay, but then establishes I guess a mechanism for the council to be more open about our finances with our residents.
How much do we have to have the first couple of years, Nancy?
Well, we
What do you
need
think?
$6,750 this year.
Okay,
We need it by August probably, maybe September at the latest, but that isn't gonna happen.
so how much would you, suggest for a month, for the first year or so? Would we have to pay more to pay for the thing?
If we set the first year at $5, it should raise approximately $8,000 the first year. That's more than we need. If we set it at $3, that's $4,860, approximately $4,800. Not about 2/3 of what it is that we need. Council's decision, it's not a decision, you can't exactly make it tonight, because if we do it by ordinance, we have to write the ordinance and establish the fee that goes into that ordinance. But I thought it was worth talking about. I thought it was very, very worthwhile of your consideration.
So maybe if we set that monthly fee, and whatever's left, I'm sure the audits are gonna go up every 5 years, the costs.
Yes.
But if there's any money left over, we can designate that money to go like to street work, something like that, and we can have that in the ordinance.
I know, but
Or anything extra.
If you have it every 5 years, I think you could probably budget into the regular budget, $1,000 or $1,200 back in each budget.
Well, you
Not have a separate charge to the citizens,
Well, you can
I don't
only,
like that separate charge to citizens.
you can only
at
do
all.
that, Dustin, if you establish reserve funds, which we haven't done because of the bookkeeping on reserve funds are too difficult in our system. So it isn't gonna work, and reserve funds are just.
Well, I think if we have it, if we set a schedule in there for a 5-year audit, I don't think that's right that, because we'll know about it in advance then.
Well, my biggest thing is it's normal business practice for businesses to do an audit, and they pay for it. Granted, yeah, it's in their, they have it figured out in their income to cover those costs, but I don't think there should be any kind of extra surcharge or anything like that passed on to
A
them.
lot of towns our size, Justin, don't do audits very often. So if
Every
we
one
set
around
it,
here does.
huh?
If you did, there's every 2.
They're a bigger town,
Wall Lake does one every 3.
yeah. But they're a bigger town.
But I think Auburn should get into
Towns
doing
our
an
size,
audit.
yes, I do too, every 5 years.
Yes.
So we're doing it every 5, so we're not gonna have as much expense as them. So size proportionate wise, we can do it every 5. If they can afford every 3, we can afford to do it every 5, size wise.
And put it into our budget saying this is what we're gonna do.
How long would it take, Nancy, if you put it into a budget after this year?
A budget is just that, guys. When the end of the year happens, the budget's gone.
Unless you have a reserve.
Yeah, I mean the reserve.
How should I say this?
So how would you do,
It depends on where you set it. And back to Justin's point about the size of the community, that's not exactly accurate, because the bigger the community, the larger the property tax base that they have to spread these costs over. It doesn't cost them much more to audit their books than it does us in an annual basis. But they have, where Lakeview probably gets 200,000, 300,000 in property taxes, we get 45 to spend that same $7,000. This is a way, actually what we're really doing is setting up a reserve fund, but we're setting reserve funds up with collected money, where it would go into a CD or into a whatever, to be held. Whereas the reserve fund that Dustin is talking about is an end of the year paper transfer. And it's a bookkeeping nightmare. And if you want to create problems in an audit, start setting up stuff like this.
So by charging the customer $3 a month, and if we start that now and do that, because that would still be reserve funds. And what I was getting at is if we started that now and did it for 5 years, could we build up? No, that ain't gonna work either.
Well, see, I guess my suggestion was we could set it for the first year at $2.50 or $3 and raise about a half to 2/3 of the money. Then from there, if it was $1 a month, it raised about $1,600 a month times 5 years. There's your money for your next audit.
In 5 years' time, you're gonna have $26,820.
Not at $1 a
$149.
month.
Not at $1, no.
And I'm figuring
At the three.
135 customers, which is about what there is on an average basis every month. It,
8,100 in 5 years.
yeah. But you have to take off the first 6750 for the first one, so, I mean,
so we wouldn't even have the second one paid for?
yeah, you know,
In
it
5
depends on
years.
how much of that, you know.
Somehow we gotta build it up.
Each, it's kind of
Yeah.
six or $7,000.
Well, even if you only built up 2/3 of the money and the council in year 5 has to budget the other third, that's doable. But you'd establish something to start with. I don't know that it's right, I'm just saying it's an option.
So if we just start out with a flat, can't we just start out with the dollar fee and keep building it up over the year?
And see where it gets us, and then if we have to increase it.
April is $2. 2 times, that's $24 a year for each household.
Each household, each business, so some people are gonna be getting hit twice. Yeah, which isn't fair either.
Well, that's a determination you guys can do in how you decide to do this. As long as you try to make it as fair to everybody as it possibly can be.